I don't know about you guys, but to me, the 2011-2012 glory days of Starcraft don't feel like a decade ago. They feel like over a lifetime ago. I'm going to be waxing poetic about 2011 and 2012 in this video. These were the glory years of Starcraft 2. Remember, the game came out in mid-2010. About 2011-2012, the meta had sort of settled and we had maps that weren't all insanely rushy, but we still had all the momentum of the initial release and constant lands. We're talking a land damn near every weekend, and a game that was not only incredible to watch but incredible to play. A game that transitioned Justin TV into a fledgling streaming network, into the monolith that is Twitch TV. And there is an overarching theme in StarCraft 2 history where, as the StarCraft community, we will sort of do something first and be the one to blaze the trail, and then inferior clout-chasing rodents will come along after and sort of try to gargle the drippings or take advantage of something that we built as a StarCraft 2 scene. You can actually see that in pretty much every esport, whether it be ripping off the GSL style format or making use of streaming and streaming an absolutely unwatchably boring product instead of something good like StarCraft. Bottom left we have MKP, top right we have Ret, just so you know, link will be in the description. So what else was magical about that 2011 era? I think the first thing you have to talk about is Temp0's music. Temp0, the homie of the StarCraft 2 scene, is an incredibly talented musician. A guy who not only made song parodies, but OC, original content. He made original songs about the game. And to me, if you want to really feel the 2011 era, feel it in your bones and remember what it was like, you can go back and watch those songs and those music videos and it'll take you back. Music has a way of transporting us back to certain moments in time that other forms of media can't. I can sit here and cast old school games from the beta and go on 35-minute long diatribes about the bunker build time and marine rushes and bunker rushes, and I could quote IdrA and Artosis and incorporate old clips from back in the day, and it still wouldn't transport you back to that era like a song would. Music has the special ability to make us feel the feelings that we felt when we heard that song for the first time. So when you hear When I'm Grandmaster, or APM Handlebars, or Alive by Temp0, it really puts you back in that era, and I encourage you, after this video is over, go listen to some old school Temp0 songs, and I dare you not to smile. Some of that stuff is so nostalgic and so special, it can put you back in that time like nothing else can. So I really had to start with Temp0 there because I'm making an entire video about an era of a game and what it felt like and what it was like to be part of the community. And I can hit all these punches and make all the analogies I want and make all the comparisons and be quantitatively and qualitatively accurate. It still won't feel like it will to listen to a song. We can see Marine King there, sacking SCV, didn't see the Bane Nest, didn't really see shit. And Temp0 and his contribution to the scene is something that cannot really be overstated. Temp0 is a guy that contributed so much to the scene and really gave the StarCraft scene a badly needed flair, a sense of pizzazz, style. He gets it. Temp0 is a guy who not only is he incredibly kind-hearted and talented, but he gets it, man. He really understood what the scene was about and really captured the essence of what it was like to play at the time. We can see Marine King here going for a multi-racks barracks timing, really trying to crush Zerg right before they go into Muta. So even though Temp0 was not a player, he was a content creator. He's the first guy you have to start with when you talk about this era, because we can watch these VODs together. I can cast these VODs for you guys and tell you about the meta, tell you about the old stem time, the old bunker, and I can be concise, and I can do a great job on these videos, but it won't give you the same feels as watching an old Temp0 video will. Whenever people streamed in this era, not only was it on Justin TV, because Twitch hadn't changed their name yet off of the success of Starcraft, you have to remember, you had a plethora of people to watch. This was an embarrassment of riches. When you turned on Twitch, there would be multiple people with thousands of viewers that you really had a hard time picking who you were going to watch. IdrA and Stefano both consistently pulled over 10k viewers. Naniwa, Huck, Sort of, Moro, Artosis, these guys were on all the time, and it was incredible. And back when you turned on Twitch in 2011, it was like you would see that little left side bar where it said following, and you'd say to yourself, well, there are literally 6 people I want to watch. So maybe you'd click one, they'd be in a mirror match, and you click on someone else. Now, think about when you go to Twitch now. You click, you go to following, and it's like there might be one person you want to watch. I don't know about you guys, but that's how it is for me as a StarCraft fan. It's like, my god, there might only be 2 people on all day that I want. But before, just a constant barrage of people I always wanted to watch. You really had to pick. And we can see here that Ret is lining up for a nice little Bane flank against Marine King, trying to crush this barracks timing. And this is sort of what I was talking about as far as metagame back in this time goes. It was more aggressive and lowbrow, but it lended itself to a great viewing experience. There's something about Zerg being a slight underdog and always being attacked, sometimes in low econ, poorly transitioning ways, that makes the game fun to watch. Even if you're Zerg and don't want to see Zerg lose, it gets to this point where it's like, well, there's something about this game in TVZ where if the Terran's attacking and the Zerg's on the back foot, it's fun to watch, even if it is a little Terran favored. Throughout this whole era, Zerg was the worst, and even if you were a Zerg player and you're thinking, well, why would I want Zerg to be bad? That wouldn't be fun to watch. It had to do with the way that the game played out as an esport, to watch Zerg as the underdog and the defending race that made it more fun. Because in the early days of the game, as I pointed out a plethora of times on the Venomous Classic series, Zerg was way more flimsy back in this era, the Queen was way worse, the Roach couldn't turn into a Ravager, you had less defensive tools, and the other races had offensive weapons that were harder to scout because of the Overlord speed and stuff like that. So the fact that this game might have been a little bit bad for Zerg was probably actually good for viewership in some regard. And hilariously, IdrA once said to Artosis that he was kind of glad that he told him to play Zerg because it allowed him to get a lot more viewers in the early part of the game's life, because Zerg was so bad, and obviously like a third of people played Zerg and were trying to figure out how to fucking survive on these tiny maps. Another thing that was interesting about this era was the team Evil Geniuses. They were constantly making this incredibly entertaining content featuring In Control and IdrA, stuff that was oftentimes skit-like. They would have the infamous IdrA playing games looking insanely bored. Even the ads that they made were hilarious and biting. I absolutely fucking hate advertisements and always mute ads when I watch TV. However, some of these advertisements that the Evil Geniuses crew made, where they would use their StarCraft programmers to plug the things that they were advertising, were absolutely brilliant. And on top of that, you had the raid call interview things that the EG team was doing, where it was raid calls basically like Discord, where you could go in and ask them questions, and Anna Prosser would like field the questions and answer them. I remember like asking IdrA and In Control questions about like 2 racks timing and stuff like this to like an audience of 30 people in a raid call, and like Anna Prosser reading it aloud and them answering it. This was the sort of stuff that seems unfathomable now. It feels like completely absurd that in 2012, when this was the most viewed esport out there, We're not talking like 2009 in the Brood War days where it was still really esoteric and small and Twitch wasn't around, Justin TV wasn't around. No, like this was an era when this was the most popular game. These players were still that accessible. The interviews that they would do on Raid Call, meeting them at events, they're just normal guys. And you could go up and talk to these dudes at events and dialogue with them and break balls and get an autograph and a photo and really be part of the community and feel like you belong to something. This isn't like watching the LCS in League of Legends where for 10 minutes IdrA's will walk out and like there's a line of 150 people, 100 of them fangirls, and he's taking a photo and moving on, taking a photo and moving on. You know, these StarCraft 2 players that I met at these LAN events, I had meaningful conversations with a lot of them. I remember asking Snoot what he did versus multiple Phoenix openers versus Protoss, and he was telling me like, once you identify a spore in every mineral line, but then you want to have a spore out between your natural and your main, you want to make an extra queen. This was an S-class, tournament-winning, goes to level 4 player I was able to dialogue with, giving me specific instructions on what I was struggling with. You don't have this anymore. And these things were fading and becoming less prominent before the COVID-19 joke pandemic began. So you can't sit here and say like, oh, it's all COVID, that's why we don't have LANs anymore. No. If you look at 2011 and 2012, we were having LANs every fucking weekend. The amount of LANs has been going down and down and down. The amount of interesting people in the scene has been going down and down and down. Naniwal retired. Nerchio retired. IdrA retired. Day 9 retired. You have so many people who added so much to this game, whether it be through an antagonist role or an anti-hero role. So we're going to bounce it back a bit here between this game of Marine King and Ret, as we see Marine King doing his signature constantly attacking style and Ret holding brilliantly. But you had these myriad of characters, whether they be sort of antagonistic like an IdrA or a Naniwa, or completely benevolent like a Genro, Ret, or Machine. The scene was an embarrassment of riches of characters. I remember going to MLG Dallas 2012 and having a positive interaction with EG Machine. Really nice guy, handsome. Can he beat the best Koreans in a macro game? Probably not. But was he a positive person in the scene that contributed, and he streamed and was entertaining and was kind-hearted at events and could steal big games and you rooted for all the time? Yes, and that's what we're missing in the scene now, as well as a plethora of other things. But this is one thing that we had back in the day that we don't have now, is guys like Ret and Genro and Machine, who you could see at LANs and be really happy about, and they had Brood War pedigree and they had history within the scene, and they top forward events, and you could go up to them and dialogue. Yeah, there are still pro gamers that show up to foreign LANs now, but it is literally about 20% or less than what we had back in the day, and it's just not the same. Like, you have to understand, going to LANs back in 2012, it was like the whole EG crew was going to be there. In Control, Machine, IdrA, Stefano, guys that you would love to meet and talk to, guys that were so funny. You could reference moments. I remember like talking to In Control back in 2012 MLG Dallas and telling him about some of like the funniest moments on stream and how I loved his little like who is Artosis bit. You can't have interactions like this anymore. If you look at 2011 to 2012 and the amount of LANs, whether it be in Europe or in America, that occurred versus now and the people that came, it would be like comparing seasons 1 through 9 of The Simpsons to the last couple years of The Simpsons. It would be like, yeah, the show's still running and it's still sort of there, like ostensibly, like Homer's still around, like Artosis, But it's like, where are all like the S-class supporting characters and all like the S-class writing and stuff we fucking love and adore? It ain't around anymore, and that's a goddamn travesty. In some cases you have people like IdrA who are just completely out of the public light, literally don't even own a desktop anymore, and for all intents and purposes can't be contacted and certainly aren't around in the scene. And then you have people like Jeff and Control Robinson, who unfortunately have just straight up passed away. Like, he's not even around on a non-Starcraft level to appreciate anymore. And I bring up In Control because this was a paragon of the Starcraft 2 scene, one of the pillars of the scene, one of these people that everybody liked, that brought everyone up. And In Control was around on these talk shows every single weekend. You gotta consider the talk shows, State of the Game, Inside the Game. These were shows that thousands of people tuned into every week. Thousands of people caught the VOD. And these were quite simply pro gamers just talking about the tournaments and the patches. And everybody loved it, and they were immensely popular. And then you had Day 9. Doing his Day 9 daily all the time, at events all the time. Whenever Day 9 stopped being involved in the scene, that was a huge blow because he helped so many people learn the game and improve. And I guess one of the final thoughts to close out on here is we just have to consider all of the people that have treated us as far as being a part of the StarCraft 2 scene, and then now we're gone. Because I talked about guys like Machine earlier, who weren't ever going to win a GSL, but were going to be at all the local NA lands, and were a threat at those lands, and were talented and fun to be around, and it was great to see it at an event and be able to chop it up with. That's one thing we're really missing now. I mean, if you look, I could list some of the players who used to be involved in StarCraft 2, and either aren't, or they're, whether they be completely retired, out of the public light, playing a different game, whatever. Or like even disgraced, like guys like StarTale Life. Like, there's a guy who a lot of people shit talk now, and they want to erase all the good that he ever did and only focus on the bad. You had god tier players like StarTale Life at the time too, even on the back end of the Wings of Liberty era. It's like even people that are disgraced now because of scandal, you had back in the day to cheer for or against. And that's in addition to all the clean players like Innovation, Flash, Rain, who have either retired from StarCraft 2 or have had to go into the military. We've had an entire cycle of legends show up to the game and leave. And it's to the point now where you fire up Twitch TV these days and there might be 2 people that you want to watch all day. And you think about 2011, 2012 and think, back in the day, I had trouble figuring out who to watch because there were so many good options. Now, shit, there's not even anyone to watch. So I just wanted to wax poetic about 2011 and 2012, talk about how great Temp0 was, talk about the days of IdrA, talk about the days where we had 8 GSLs a year instead of 2 or 3, and just really appreciate the fact that this used to be the premier esport in the entire world, and it was so much better than everything else that people actually acknowledged the fact that it was the best and that everything else was sort of B tier. Now we sort of live in a joke world where these shitty B tier esports sort of pretend that they're legitimate, as they have one online game after another used as a avenue for match fixing. And the StarCraft 2 scene basically pioneered the ability for computer games to be streamed and cared about, because without StarCraft 2 it's all Mickey Mouse bullshit. Like, even if you like League of Legends, or you like Counter-Strike, or you like Dota, or even like one of those shitty tier 2 esports like Rainbow Six Siege or some insipid bullshit, literally no one's even giving them the time of day without StarCraft 2. These quote-unquote esports You know, they're abhorrent disgraces as it is, but they're seen for what they are by everyone else. Like these pissant tier 2 joke scenes that exist couldn't even exist without Starcraft. As like terrible and uninteresting as they are, Starcraft gave birth to and enabled inferior esports to exist. Without Starcraft 2, even the shitty esports are literally being played in LANs of 20 people and watched by no one. That's how important Starcraft 2 was. It got people to care about and fuck with inferior products because it was so legendary and innovative. And I think it's important that we reflect upon the legends of the scene and don't just forget about them. Easy.